Boom! Yes, folks, Hume here again. How are you going? So I want to talk in this video a little bit more about Bomdas. Right? We realize that this thing about Bomdas is not as simple and straightforward as we think. In the first video on Bomdas, I would have worked a particular question where we ended up getting two different answers, and we dealt with the whole question of the plus sign and the negative sign and so forth and so forth. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about why I specifically use Bomdas and not Bodmas. Right? Some people go with Bodmas, others go with Bomdas, and then there are some people in the middle who are of the view that it really doesn't matter which side you choose, you'll get the same answer, which is usually the case. Usually, for exam purposes, you'll get some kind of sequence of numbers where it doesn't matter whether you divide first or whether you're multiplying first. Right? That is usually the case. But there's a particular question that I want to work today. One of those internet things that pop up all the time. I want to work one of those today and show why I stick with Bomdas and not Bodmas. So if you happen to fall in the Bodmas camp, stick around. And even for those in the Bomdas camp, check it out. Let me get a little more confirmation on the thing now. Let me be a little more sure as to why Bomdas is the way to go and not Bodmas. Alright? So there was a question that was all over social media a couple of years ago. 8 divided by 2 into 2 plus 2. No problem. The first line, nobody had a problem with. The first line is that 8 divided into 2 into 4. Everybody get that? Because we all know that when you're dealing with Bomdas, you have to deal with the contents of the bracket first. Right? So in other words, and I'm going to use a particular phrase, a particular phraseology now that I want you to take note of literally if you have to, because I will explain that using an example in a separate video. What we have to do with Bomdas is to resolve the contents of the bracket. Let me say that again. What the B means is not just to work out what you have inside the bracket. Working out the contents of the inside of the bracket is one thing. But resolving the contents of the bracket is a different thing, because resolving the contents of the bracket usually means that you have to interact with something outside the bracket. But we will touch on it here, and I will do a separate video with a different type of question to show you what it means, and hopefully between this video and the next video, you'll have a much clearer sense of what the B in the Bomdas is about, and you will be even more convicted about why multiplication first is not the way. Sorry, multiplication first is the way. Division first is not even an option. Alright? So once we get to here, what some folks do, and we're going to put both options on the board. Some folks do this, because at this point now you're saying, well, it don't matter if you divide first or multiply first, right? Because Bodmas is Bomdas, right? Because we know that what this actually means is 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4. We know that is what it means. So we say, all right, let me divide first now. All right, we divide first. We divide first, and what we get? 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 multiplied by 4 is equal to 16. And then there are the other folks who would say, nah, we multiplying first because this is with Bomdas now. So the Bodmas people will do this. And then the Bomdas people will do this. The Bomdas people will say, well, all right, we multiplying first. So you have 8 divided by 2 by 4 is 8. Right? 8 divided by 8. And there is 1 as the final answer. Question. Which version is the correct version? Well, let me answer that now. Because if we go back to this form written as it is, if you don't have any idea of any particular structure in which to work these questions, you have a literal free-for-all. Some people divide in first, which basically is the same thing as if you divide first, what you're actually doing is this. You put in the brackets around the 8 divided by 2, which is what we had here in red. And then that's the Bomdas people. And then the Bomdas, you're doing that. But what about if we write this over in a different notation? If we write it over like this, watch carefully now. Division, we know, is usually represented as a ratio. Something over something. So 8 divided by 4 is 8 over 4. 8 divided by 8 is 8 over 8. Watch this. 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4, we already agreed was the same thing as 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4. Now, the question here is, which of these two versions is it? Is it that this is it, let me change the color, is it that that can be written as 8 divided by 2? Let me write it out exactly how we would think it out. How we would think it, right? So if you're thinking, you would say, all right, 8 divided by 2 is 8 divided by 2, and then you multiply by 4. That is what this looks like. Sorry, this is what this looks like if you divide in first. Or, on the other hand, you could say that what you actually have is 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4. See? So in other words, without some kind of guidepost, without some kind of rule, without some kind of structure, we could either do this or we could do this. Which one are we doing? Alright? Now, I want to go back to the issue of resolving the brackets that we discussed earlier in the video. Because in this form, we still have brackets here. So in other words, when you divide first, you actually ignoring a whole bracket here, not realizing that you had to deal with that first before you do anything else. So in other words, when you reach here, you're still at the stage of brackets. You're not yet at the stage where you have to decide whether you're multiplying or dividing first. You have to resolve the brackets first. And in this case, the only way to resolve the brackets, well, is by multiplication. Right? If you have the contents of a bracket and you have something outside, right outside it, we know that in maths, when we write in maths A brackets B, we know that that is the same thing as saying A multiplied by B. So in other words, the brackets is used to represent multiplication in maths. Right? Likewise, another quick example that some folks might be a little more familiar with. If we say 2 into x plus 5, we know that what we're actually doing is multiplying the 2 outside by everything inside the bracket, which would then give us 2x plus 10. Alright? Different topic for a different day. The point we're making is that the brackets here represents multiplication as we write it here, but you still have a pair of brackets to resolve. So in other words, written in this form, it is easy to see that you have a pair of brackets that you need to resolve, even when resolving the bracket means that interacting the contents of the bracket with something outside the bracket. So Bomdas is not just about working out what is inside the bracket. Sorry, the B in Bomdas. The B in Bomdas is not just about working out what is inside the bracket. The B in Bomdas also signifies that you're resolving the bracket. You're resolving the contents of the bracket. What that usually means is that having worked out the inner contents of the bracket, you now interact it with whatever it is outside to get whatever your final value is, and then you go ahead with whatever other operation you need to go ahead with. So what that translates to is that if we find ourselves in this situation where you have 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4, based on the discussion we just had there, based on what we could clearly see here, which is a bracket, it means that when we have division and multiplication coming together as we have here, the multiplication supersedes the division. The multiplication precedes the division. In other words, the multiplication is a higher order. The multiplication goes first. So there is no case of, well, I can divide first because it's Bodmas. No, Bodmas is wrong. That's basically what it is, right? And I am not afraid to say that. Bodmas is wrong. The correct thing is Bomdas, not Bodmas. Right? If you wasn't sure before, then this question here should make it a little clearer. That in a situation like this, where that is equal to this, what you actually have before you is this, not this. Right? So this here is wrong. This here is correct. Right? You multiply first. So what you have is 8 divided by the whole 2 multiplied by 4. Not 8 divided by 2, which you would be tempted to write based on how you think it out. 8 divided by 2 multiplied by 4. So you tell yourself, well, you divide 8 by 2 first and then you multiply by 4. You multiply 2 by 4 first and then you divide by 8. So in other words, the multiplication takes place first, even when it is not written first. Let me say it again. The multiplication takes place first, even when it is not written first. So, even though we don't have that problem with the brackets, in other words, wherever the bracket happens to be, we know that we have to deal with the brackets first. We have to simplify whatever is inside the brackets. But when we get here now, we tell ourselves that division and multiplication is on the same level. Not true at all. You multiply first and then you divide. Right? So I hope that would have clarified the matter. Right? You look at these two forms, which mean the same thing mathematically. Over here you could clearly see the brackets. So where are we going? Where are you going? Dividing. What are you really doing? understand that 2 into 4 is 2 multiplied by 4. And when you understand that, you still have a pair of brackets here that you have to resolve. Then you know that you have to do multiply first, which means that in this form, the multiplication goes first. So I hope that clarifies the issue. And I hope for people that I would have interacted with, and for people that I will interact with, that you have a little more clarity now as to why I use Bomdas and not Bodmas. Right? And I would like to suggest very strongly, if you or anybody else, if you actually teaching people this, don't teach them Bodmas. Bodmas wrong. It's supposed to be Bomdas. Right? And if you're learning it from a teacher, and the teacher tell you Bodmas, I would respectfully suggest that the teacher is wrong. And I hope that you understand why, having looked at this particular video.